We don't have an intro. Hey everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Who Are They? Spin from the Reel. I had to remember the title because we just came up with that today. But this is something Chris and I have wanted to do, and hopefully we get Toby in on this on occasion and Nick in on this. But we all love Schmoedown, and we've wanted to do something related to Schmoedown since that's kind of how we all met. Well, Nick and I.
Exactly how we met.
That's exactly how we met. And then Nick and I got into Schmoedown together. Whenever there's a live event, we get together and watch it and all that fun stuff. But I know Chris was behind up until recently. So you have me who's been like tweeting out my Schmoedown takes for the last couple months. Chris, what do you think about this season of Schmoedown so far?
Oh geez. So I watched the draft and I love the draft. I love how that panned out. Like at least it was exactly what I wanted it to be and exactly what I think Kristian hoped it to be. I loved the I love that there was imbalanced teams because that's only fair. Yeah. Like you had the actual managers pick the teams, and it was super heavy in regards to like the Finstock exchange, and to me like the rock stars. Like it really just it felt real. It felt like a sport now, which is awesome. Yes. So, and at least in regards to how the matches have panned out, it's still the movie trivia Schmoedown to me. I still really dig it. I still love it as much as I did a year ago, 2 years ago, however so many years ago since it started. My one biggest complaint, critique that I cannot stop thinking about, and especially with what we're going to be talking about as the season progresses, is the factions and who's in them and how they will handle belts. So, spoiler alert, Ben Bateman started the season off as our champion. Great. Cool. Love Ben. Ben's great. But he lost the belt to Dan Murrell, who's within his faction. Okay. And Ben's cool with that. Okay. I'm the type of fan that loves the theatrics as much as the trivia. Like I'm right there. I love the perfect balance between the two. And seeing Ben be cool with losing the belt to Dan upset me. It rubbed me the wrong way. Because I'm thinking of this as a pro wrestling fan. And like if there was a belt within the faction, hypothetically to use wrestling terms, if Shawn Michaels beat Triple H for the WWE Championship, you think Triple H would be upset. And that's something that we'll see play out as the season goes. I know with Who's the Boss recently, and their W's over the Odd Couple, and them slowly maybe getting a title shot against the Founding Fathers. If the Founding Fathers lose the belts to Who's the Boss,
well, no, you got to remember they got corruption before Who's the Boss.
Well, I'm talking like hypothetically, even if they get to that position. Are the Founding Fathers going to be okay with losing the belts to Who's the Boss? And I'm thinking of like the Outlaw, all about he wants the belts. Oh yeah, his whole gimmick these past few years have been.
I want all the belts, all the belts, all the records,
all of that. But if he loses the belts to people within this faction, is that a good thing? And are we going to continue to see that play out as the season progresses?
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but I watch Schmoedown backstage a lot, and John has tried to make it completely clear. We just, at the end of this, because Kristian has made it known, at the end of the year, it's the faction, whatever faction comes out on top with the most points is going to get this prize. We don't know what the prize is, but they're going to end up with this prize. So at that point, they just want to end up coming out as the winning team. So if the title's staying within there, they're gaining more points because they're getting the title shots all the time and the points for title defenses and things like that. So when you're in a situation like this, wouldn't you rather be on the winning team and still be able to compete with all these other players? Like Rocha, Riley, Finstock, Ben, they've all been on backstage, and they've all basically said, as long as it stays within the faction, I'm fine. But then at the end of that match with Dan and Ben, we had that little moment between Ben and Rocha going at each other, just like right at the end of it. So, like, in that moment, I thought emotions were high, and that was just because he just lost, and I know that entire week there was the buildup of, oh, who should be managing who, or who's managing who. Ben thought they should go no managers, but Rocha and Merle were under the impression that Rocha was going to be managing Merle and Bateman would be managed by Finstock. It's just that kind of thing, and as much as I'm a Finstock exchange stan, like that is my ride or die faction right now. Bobby Gucci's been handling shit poorly with fourth round Rocha incident, and then
that was funny.
Yeah, and then that whole debacle of who's managing who, it was just it wasn't the right thing. So,
and that's going to continue as this goes if we keep up with the whole infighting between factions, especially as characters continue to develop league wide, and if we see more infighting between factions, then we will keep having this issue. Because to my knowledge, the only faction that has at least two manager type positions is the Den. Correct? Because they have Grace and they have Kate.
And they have Kate, because Kate's a rookie manager and Grace is like I'm gonna advisor. Yeah, and like I mean, I know that originally when Sam drafted like Ken, that was the idea behind it. But we've seen in the last few matches that everyone's on that roster is kind of taking turns at being a manager for someone.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's what they're doing right now is really interesting. We talk about Schmoedown ad nauseum at times, and I where we are right now kind of scares me, because right now they're just recording a ton of these exhibition matches.
Yeah,
and all of these storylines are now put on hold. Like, we got nothing going on.
The free for all getting postponed, maybe even canceled, is a bummer. You know?
Yeah,
like it's a real, because that's probably a lot of people's favorite event in the Schmoedown. Plus, we've gotten so many incredible moments out of these free for alls in the last few years. So everything being put on pause at the moment does suck, and I get it. It's a matter of circumstance, and it's no one's fault really. But these exhibition matches, they're going to be cool. I'm going to watch them.
The Champions exhibition match, I'm pumped for, because you're going to have every single champion in one match,
which is going to be nuts. And I know I think they're filming them like this week. I think
that one's already filmed. Kristian posted a screen capture. They did that on Streamlabs. It's filmed. I think this week is when Patreons start getting the ones that are filmed.
And the sooner we start getting these, awesome. I don't want all of us to get them within the next few weeks, because then we're gonna be really scraping at, like, clawing at things that we can do for at least for the rest of the year, because we don't know when we're going to be able to get back to the studio and start recording more episodes.
Right. Well, and in that case, the non-patrons aren't going to get them until like May, Kristian said. And California looks like it's going to extend its stay-at-home order, which doesn't help in that instance. But it's, considering we saw the Mike Andrew guy set up, and that was supposed to be the Houston match, and we lost the free for all, and we were about to have this number one contender match of Rocha versus Irwin. It looks like I was just like, the Schmoedown was going full steam ahead, and I was just ready. And we got the news that they were getting the ESPN story, and it's just like it seemed like it was just about to reach the beginning of what I hope to be a large peak for that show, and then COVID-19 just sent it crashing down.
And I feel that for Kristian, because that, like, this season, my man put all his eggs in one basket, and we're gonna rock.
Mm-hmm. And it was going.
Yeah, like in January, everything looked great. Live events were planned every single month, at least once a month, and with throwdowns scheduled in between, like, we were gonna have a chock full of movie trivia Schmoedown this year, just for it to all be put on hold for a bit, and that's perfectly fine, at least because of the circumstances. So I get it, but we're gonna have to reach the point where we have to at least try to advance these storylines, at least to hold interest, because we set up a lot of things in the first 2 months, or really first 3, because there's, like, I know we're going to talk about Robert Parker and Andres Cabrera going up this week. but like that was filmed at the studio, so they filmed a bunch before COVID even shut everything down. So I want to know when that ends and when we're going to stop seeing studio stuff.
I think the last studio day they had was that first Saturday of March, because I remember that was the interview. That was the weekend we interviewed Sam Levine for Watt, and he was telling us like, yeah, I made the commitment to this prior. Originally, this huge match between between the family and corruption was going to be a few weeks ago, but Andrew was sick, and I had already committed to this, and we tried to work it all out, but we couldn't. So that's why Janine managed the family that game, or that match. And it's just like, okay, that all makes sense. And by watching that, the family and corruption live event, you see the outfit Andrew Guy's wearing. And it's the same one he's been wearing in the past 2 episodes, in the cutscene he did in this past episode, in the match as a manager. So I think that was probably the last filming day. But like Kristian said, sometimes they film like 6 to 8 episodes in a day,
which is absolutely nuts.
I mean,
but little did we know that was going to be crucial to
the survival of the league.
Pans out in the next few months.
Yeah, and I know, like, I was really excited for this corruption and Founding Fathers tire match, like, because I love how Mike Kalinowski comes out there, and I do like Mike as a player. I think he's a great player.
I love Mike. Oh my god,
his character gets on me, but I think he's a fantastic player. I love how he made the comments such as like, oh yeah, it's not like we gave ourselves a title shot. Merle had won the free for all last year and was able to use it for a title shot. He used it on his teammate, on him and his teammate, and they won. But Mike's also the guy who's just like, yeah, I'm gonna give myself another shot at the Inner Geekdom title after corruption. So yeah, that was that. But the thing about Mike's character I find sometimes is that he can be such a hypocrite.
Okay.
Just because, like, he'll rag on other players for things that they're doing, but if you go back and look at the history of the league, he's also done that at some point.
And I think that might be part of the character.
And that could be. That could be. You could be right. That could be part of the character. But, like, I love to hate him. Like, that's how you know you have a good heel. It was back when Team Action was a thing, and the Patriots, I loved to hate them.
Oh, they were incredible heels and great characters.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying about my whole character thing. Like, I love these characters. And some guys, like Dan is probably the GOAT at movie trivia, answering questions straight up. Like, I'm the one that thinks Sam Levine. I still stand by Sam. Don't get my words. But in regards to answering questions, I think Dan will be the GOAT, especially as the league progresses.
Oh yeah.
The longer Dan's in it, he's gonna have a bigger imprint on it than Sam will. Bean keeps going to conventions and missing his managing.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about conventions for the time being.
I know, right? But Dan doesn't have a character. Dan is Dan.
Yeah.
Dan's just the guy, which is perfectly fine. But people like Andrew Guy or the outlaw John Rocha, those characters are crucial to the movie trivia Schmoedown. They are crucial. And guys like KO, I forget, it wasn't this past team tourney. It was the one before that when corruption was the thing.
Yeah.
So, and Kristian, kayfabe wise, gave all that to Mike.
Yeah, but Mike was always that
and that elevated
B player. Yeah, he was that top B player, low A player who's like he was right on the cusp, and Kristian's like, screw it, I'm pushing him through. I'm making him one of the stars, and
it worked.
It did.
Mike arguably carried the second half of last season on his back. Like, I honestly think that Mike is so crucial to where the Schmoedown is right now. And that's just a testament to the character building that Mike has done for his own character. And guys like Andrew, John, and even Drew McWeeny before his sudden retirement, or Andrew before his retirement, or any of the other bigger characters that we've gotten that aren't just playing themselves, Like I honestly think they're what's going to keep the Schmoedown going forward. You can answer all the movie trivia questions that you can, and that's great, and that obviously wins you matches. But the characters, I think, is what keeps people there, and what keeps storylines interesting. And Mike is a big proponent of that, or has been a proponent of that for a while now.
And one storyline that you could say that fans are hoping gets pushed, and maybe we got a look into that being a possibility with the cutscene from this past match, was the reconnection of Team Action, considering they're both now faces. That's just how it is. Like Andrew, he's playing Debonair, where he's still a face, but he does have some heel tendencies in like the way he responds, but he'll respond like in a suave way. Like in the match against the family, when Mike was sucking on the sucker, he's like, I don't think that looks how you think it looks, or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it would pain me to see Team Action come back together, but I also think that Andrew, who I always felt was the weaker half of Team Action, I feel like Andrew's game has now probably, even though Riley's won a belt, he's probably on par with Mark Riley right now.
Yeah, if not, he's damn close.
Right.
Oh, Team Action reunion. And obviously, it's going to take a lot for it to happen, especially with the jumping of factions. Whether it's the usual suspect,
also, it's got to be trades
picking up Ben, or if it's the Finstock Exchange picking up Andrew. And that's again to my point of how we started this: the faction infighting. Because are the Horsemen and the rest of the Finstock Exchange going to be cool with Andrew Guy, former teammates, heel teammates with Ben Bateman? I would love to see that pan out. Maybe let's not blow our load in the first season of this whole drafting thing, but down the line, oh my God, I would love to see that. I think that'd be incredible. That'd be fantastic. Not only for both of their characters, but again, for storylines in between the factions, and for how the Schmoedown will play out going forward. It just makes it more interesting.
Well, you also have to factor in the sports side of things in it right now, where Kristian has said a team has to lose 2 matches before they can be broken up. So right now, Who's the Boss has won, and Andrew Guy already ended up breaking up because of mcweeny retiring.
Yes.
So with that in mind, we have to take a look at just what would have to happen is Who's the Boss would have to lose against whoever they play next, and then lose the title match to be able to be broken up. So you'd have to wait a while at least, and like you said, don't blow your load in the first season. You'd have to wait a while even before a trade like that can be made. Because personally, I don't think the Founding Fathers are losing anytime soon, and I don't think. And like I said, I'm a Finstock Exchange stan. Gucci's not going to throw away points. He's not going to give away.
Yeah, it would be foolish.
Especially since he's arguably the greatest manager of all time. I know people say Emma Fife. I know people argue all these other players, but like him and Roxy, they're going at it all the time now. Even on Schmoedown backstage, Roxy has no issue throwing shade at Dagnino because she thinks he's a horrible manager. So what personally, he is the best manager. You see what he does for how he talks to his players in between those during those breaks in between rounds, and how he talks them up even if they lose. He's straight faced. He's what you expect from a manager. And I love Roxy, and she's the same way, but she can't just down Dagnino and say that he's not a good manager. He's got how many belts to his record? Think about this. The Patriots and all their he had Merle back when Merle was a champion, if I remember correctly. I can't remember.
Tom has done so and people like to undermine Tom. People think Tom's just foolish because of his antics, because of what he wears, because of what he does. But he is obviously an incredible manager, and we can't deny it.
Like even when Rocha, who you could argue for the first few years when we were starting to get really into this character stuff with the Schmoedown, was the one who was dead set against Tom as a manager, didn't care for him, all that. Rocha's come around and said he's done a lot for me. I can't even lie. He's kept me level headed at points where I might not have been level headed if it hadn't had a manager. Just situations like that. That's where where Dagnino shines, because say what you want about Dagnino, he's kooky, he's crazy, he's all over the place, and like he could be on the ceiling right now for all we know, and no one would be shocked. But everybody who plays for him, for the most part, defends him.
Yeah, and that is just a testament, because he's managed some of the best players in Schmoedown history, teams and singles, and we can't deny that. And you mentioned Roxy, and I love Roxy as a manager.
Yep.
But I forget where I saw it. I want to say it was on the Schmoedown subreddit, or if I was on the Facebook page. But someone said that Roxy essentially clings on to the past, and like, especially with the Odd Couple played an amazing game, like against Who's the Boss.
Yep.
Like they played an incredible game, but they still lost. It's like, and it doesn't matter how good of a game you play, like you still took the L.
Right.
Like,
and you make a valid point about the hanging on to the past, because she'll always be like, or even Schneider, you can say, has a tendency to do that, because you had like this past match when they lost, where he's just like, oh, if they didn't get this or this or this, but they did, and that's how the game goes. And you of all people should know that, being a former champion, and arguably part of the greatest team of all time, and it's just you can't just be like, oh well, it went their way, but we deserve to win that. No, it went their way, and they showed up.
Because everyone can say that. Everyone can say like, oh, if I didn't spin this category, or if this person didn't get this category, or they missed this, or they took too long in this, or whatever. You can make excuses for everything, but you still took the L. And obviously, Kristian's making more of an emphasis on wins and losses this year, so we have to keep that in mind.
Because of the point system.
Exactly.
So it's this season has probably been the most invested I've been since season 5. Last year I was invested, but not completely invested. I had my ups and downs with it, because there were some matches where I was like, I don't know. But season 5, when Irwin was introduced and Merle came back, that was, to me, as of right now, that's still arguably the best season. Season 6 was great, but season 5 is like, that was when the Schmoedown started finding its feet, and then the last season was growth, and now this season was supposed to be even more growth. But you were talking about the point system, all that. Let's look at the faction standings as they stand right now after this match with Jada the Hurricane Paramo and Brittany Cherry Bomb Young. The Finstock Exchange, man, they are the gold standard. They're the Black Stallions. And right now, man, the dungeon, what's going on?
What happened to the dungeon? Oh my gosh.
Kaiser picking all those rookies, man, and they're just not showing up.
He was getting clowned after the draft. Clowned. Straight clowned. Because he was the manager to look at for the draft. Because we already knew the stock of, no pun intended, of Finstock and of Roxy. We knew that. We already knew their caliber. We knew what they were going to bring to the table. But Kaiser was the most interesting manager, at least looking into the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's with him backing Smets, like one of the better new players, if not the best new player of the last year or two.
Yep.
Like, all eyes are on Kaiser. And maybe that's where the pressure got to him, drafting all these newer players. Dropping the ball essentially in the draft, and the record reflects that.
Yeah. I mean, he does have Video Drew, who I think each match she gets better.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to see her in singles again. But like we said before, who knows when we're going to get that chance. But let's look back at that faction standing real quick. You have Kate, who going into this, no one knew how she was going to be as a manager. And her team's in second right now. Like, I remember looking at the Den roster when it was initially drafted. I'm like, man, I don't know. She picked Bagel Boy or excuse me, the Bandit. And
Yeah, how dare you? How dare you disrespect him?
Well, he's earned my respect now. But she picked the Bandit and all these other players. I mean, like when she grabbed Tom and Paul Preston,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, okay, that's an interesting combo, and they played well. I know some people got on her for her mistake in that match. She's a rookie manager. Every rookie manager is bound to have something happen like that. But to have her team be in second place, followed by Winston, another rookie manager who his team is just fun to watch. That's probably my favorite team to watch outside of the teams on the exchange right now, because the final exam or whatever they're called. Oh God, Lon Harris,
Lon and Paul Yama.
Yep, that Lon's character change has just been so amazing. But then you have established managers and teams like the Rockstars, who they're in a tie for fourth place, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they're tied, a three-way tie for fourth. Good job. Roxy's talking a ton of shit and she's not backing it up. That's just how I feel about it.
If you're to tell me that and not to give any flack to Robert Meyer Burnett, but of R&B and Roxy, if you're to tell me that they would have their factions would have the same record essentially, or the same standing 4 months into this, or 2 months into this new season, I wouldn't believe you. Because you would assume that Roxy is going to have a kick-ass team.
Especially with some of the bonehead trades Robert Meyer Burnett made. He traded Video Drew, and then he traded Claudia Dolph, who he got for Video Drew, for Bonnie Somerville.
And I feel bad for Claudia so much because she's been taught all over the place.
Well, I know she's got her match coming up soon.
I can't. She probably be traded before that. My thing is that, and I credit the Finn Stock Exchange because they have so many matches. They have twice as many matches as a lot of the other factions on that list. So maybe we just gotta take it with time. We'll see if the Finn Stock Exchange slows down, but with Who's the Boss climbing the team rankings, we'll see how that pans out. I guarantee we're not done seeing Who's the Boss, or because the Founding Fathers, they're obviously at the top, at least in regards to teams. So they're going to chill for a bit, with the exception of corruption being on their tails. Mm-hmm. But I'm intrigued on how factions like the Den, because you mentioned Ben the Bandit. I did not know what to expect out of my man.
Right.
And boy, has he brought it. Him and Rachel Silvestrini on the same team. I love the pride. They're going to be a team to look out for, at least in the coming months, and arguably for seasons to go. If they stay together as a team, oh my God, they're so good together.
Oh, I agree. And I didn't expect Ben. I'm with you. I didn't expect the Bandit to be that good. I was like, oh, he's actually got the skills to back up the mouth. Okay.
Yeah, and whether it's in singles and he was against RB3, that was probably supposed to be just a fun SCN match, but that was his coming out party.
Yeah.
And then just to do the team match, I want to see where that goes, where that takes the Den, because to me, that's probably going to be at least a focal point, if not the focal point that the Den will have going forward.
Yeah.
Swag, he said, it's fun as hell to watch, and they are, because Winston's a funny ass manager, and I love watching him do his thing. A vet of the movie trivia Schmoedown, being a former competitor, becoming a manager. I want to see how that turns out, and I want to see how the Rockstars pick it up, because they have to, right? Whether it's Andraco and Snyder in singles, or as the odd couple, and with the status of the movie trivia Schmoedown going forward, maybe we'll see a return of JTE in some type of Zoom format,
right,
by the end of the year.
I think you're right. I'm very curious to see how it goes because of reasons like that. Because if these stay-at-home orders keep getting extended, that's just where we're going to be at. We're going to be at the point where you have no other options. And if Kristian really wants to keep this thing growing, he's going to have to do the StreamYards and the Zooms as much as he doesn't want to. He's going to have to. But something we do know about this year is whichever manager ends up in last place, they won't be a manager next year. So what I'm doing is when I'm looking
And
at
who is
these
it? Who is it
standings,
right now? The dungeon with Kaiser.
yeah, and
Oh
granted,
man.
he's right there with corruption. All he needs is a win, is one win, or anything like that. And like, think about it. If it weren't for that corruption match or the corruption team match they had, they'd be right there with the dungeon.
Yeah.
And,
Which is crazy to think about these few months into the league or into this new season.
So it's going to be really interesting with that, because I think we talked about this before, like, what happens to corruption if say corruption somehow ends up being last in the standings? Yeah. What happens? What does Mike do? Does Mike retire? Because Shannon's no longer going to be a manager at that point. She's not going to be able to. So what does Mike do? Who's going to manage Mike? Because Mike is as of right now only wants to be managed by Shannon.
He was adamant, and he let everybody know of that.
And that was even going into the draft. It's like, you draft me, I'll sit. I'm not going to play, and I'm going to force a trade.
And if it's the dungeon, and I know Kaiser has Robert Parker, who's going to be, or at least to the patrons, the match is already up. But this Friday we'll see Parker versus Cabrera, and I'm interested to see how Robert Parker does. I know he came from the fan leagues, correct?
Yeah, and he looks like he's 12.
Have been churning out some big names in the last few years. Former champions, current champions.
Oyama, Chance, like, those fan leagues are no joke anymore. I think some people, and it seems like competitors they got to take those fan leagues more serious, because it seems like those fan leagues are now becoming like the D League, the G League, just Kristian, when he sees someone he thinks has that talent, hey, I'm calling you up to the big leagues. Come on, let's do this.
And with these fan leagues being the minor leagues of the Schmoedown now, and it's crazy. I watched Dan he was talking to Ben and Guy on Action Industries a couple days ago, and he said that Paul Oyama showed him a picture that he took with Dan, and little did he know he'd be taking the belt off Dan less than a year later.
Right.
Like, that is absolutely insane to think about. So Robert Parker, I remember I saw him at the draft, and I heard a bunch about him, and people are hyping him up, Kristian especially, like, this kid is the next star. And I'm like, you know what?
We'll see.
We'll see how that pans out. At least coming from me, I haven't high on, if it's just the guys from a character standpoint. To me, they're just, they're fans that are good at answering trivia questions. At least that's how they start off as. Chance rubbed me the wrong way character-wise. So did Paul, but they both came into their own. Kevin was kind of different because he had Kaiser to be his mouthpiece. And now Kevin is kick-ass by himself, which he doesn't need Kaiser as much as he needed to, or as much as he needed him 6 months ago. But I want to see how Robert Parker is. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's our age.
He's your age. He's your age. You got to remember, I got a couple years on you. I'm late to the...
like, he looks like he's 15, and if he's 22 like your boy, then it's like, huh. Like, I wonder how he's going to fit in. Because obviously we've heard that he's awesome, and that's incredible. But I want to see how this pans out. Because he doesn't seem like the heel type that Smets was when he showed up. Because Kaiser is just a kick-ass heel manager. Yes. Is that going to be the same? Is going to take the same approach for Robert Parker? And we'll see that on Friday. But I'm curious, and I want to see where Robert Parker goes going forward, at least in the Schmoedown, because he's going to be around, win or lose. He's going to be around with all this hype around him, and shit. We might even reach the point where it might be a Parker v. Smets for the IG belt.
Right.
Who knows?
But you're talking about Parker. He's going against the guy who's been around this league basically since the beginning in Ace. Like, you can't just sleep on Ace.
Oh, no. Like, I'm not trying to sleep on Andres at all. All I'm saying is that Ace hasn't been the guy, or hasn't been as talked about as a competitor as Robert Parker. We've been anticipating the debut of Robert Parker since
the draft.
he got drafted. Shit, before the draft. It's like a question before the draft was, where's Robert Parker going to go? And he obviously went to the dungeon with Kaiser. Yeah, second round pick before Rocha, technically. Like we really need to keep this in mind. Like there are a lot of chips stacked betting on this kid, and he's gonna be a big part, whether we like it or not. And he might show the ace up his sleeve, pun intended.
Yeah.
And try to take out Andres. Like I'm so curious to see how that match is gonna go. I'm because if the fans coming into the league have shown us anything, is that they rule and they cannot be slept on.
And they know their shit. They just
and
really
they know what's up because they're fans. They've been watching along with us, and obviously they're better than us in these because they're kicking ass, going undefeated in these fan leagues.
I just gotta say, if I could figure out a way to get into one of these fan leagues, I think I'd hold my own.
We might have to reach out to these fan leagues and see what's up because I play along too. But look, if Paul Oyama, I think he's the most recent example, right? With the exception of the Hurricane, at least that made an impact as a rookie. Shit, well, Oyama was undefeated until
Dan.
Where
was it, Dan? No, it was Ben. An undefeated Ben.
Until Ben, and apparently, like Paul had a lot going on personally, which affected his game. So, like I'm not ready to just be like, like Ace, man. Ace is a vet, sure. But if these rooks have shown us anything, it's like they cannot be slept on, and they have to be high caliber for Kristian to let them come and play. He's not just gonna let some schmuck come in and play.
Right.
So, and if he's going for inner geekdom, these inner geekdom dudes do not play around in the slightest. Smets proving that right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And going head to head with one of the best, if not the best IG player in Mike Kalinowski and besting him. So all I'm saying is that I want to see how Robert Parker, his character, I want to see his character first and foremost. And maybe did Kristian just feed Ace to the Wolves? Like, I'm super curious. And I can't wait to watch on Friday.
Yeah, I might have to check in on my Patreon tonight and watch that, honestly. But no, we previewed this upcoming week's match, but let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk about this match that happened on Friday, where we had Jada the Hurricane versus Brittany Young. Brittany the Cherry Bomb Young.
Yeah.
That was the first time I probably saw Kaiser acting somewhat face. I'm going to say that right off the bat. And
I love that Brittany, famous from Glow, and I don't know if you've seen Glow.
No, I gave it 2 episodes and I checked out. It wasn't for me.
I loved Glow. I can't wait for their next and final season, but she's one of the better parts of it, one of the more wholesome parts, which kind of fits the character that we got in the Schmoedown, or if it's a character, it may just be her. But she essentially balanced out Kaiser in the best way possible without really ruining or making Kaiser switch up his character.
Right.
Like I really dug it. Like I was loving the interplay between the two of them. And I was excited to see the matchup between 2 rooks, 2 debuts with Jader, the guy that won the Orlando fan event, to allow him to come play this, and a celebrity who's technically played before, but it's her first singles match.
Right.
So I was intrigued at the idea, and spoiler alert, I was kind of pleased with the result.
Great.
So even if I didn't get my pick wasn't correct, if I did a prediction for it, I still was pleased with how both competitors played.
Right, that's what I was about to say. Where that match ultimately could have gone either way. I had a fun time watching it. I think if she hadn't gotten Oscars and she had landed on something like Disney, because we saw in the match, whenever that was an Oscars Disney question, knew it right away.
Oh, nailed it without even thinking about it.
So once again, it's just about the wheel spinning your way.
Mm-hmm.
And that that's the one thing that about the Schmoedown that I love the most, because they always say the wheel round makes or breaks you, and that's the ultimate truth. There's no way around that. You're either gonna live or die by this wheel. You're gonna end up with a 10-point lead, or you're gonna end up barely scraping by with a 1-point lead or be under. And like the wheel round came into play in a significant way for her, and they both got subjects they weren't the strongest in.
Yeah,
but he was just strong enough to scrape by. But I think Jader, they each had their first match jitters. That's what it boils down to. He had his first match jitters. She had her first match jitters. There's no way around it. But Jader, I think, did a very good job of just managing the game also.
Mm-hmm.
And he was lucky enough to have Guy and Janine by his side, actual players to help him play through this and give the best performance he possibly could with the hand he was dealt.
And being in front of the cameras, in front of the audience, in front of Kristian, like, that's a lot of pressure, especially
Right.
from a fan. He's the guy that paid to go to the Orlando live event, just like everyone else there. Got lucky enough to be chosen, compete on that stage in front of other fans, and then go out and do it in front of the people you've been watching for however so many years.
Right.
Like, it's a lot of pressure. And I know Kristian and the people, like, whether it's Mark, Kristian, Miss Movies, they always talk about when they're on commentary that the lights can get to people. Being under the lights in front of the camera can be more difficult than us at home on our TVs watching and playing along. And Jader made it seem like he was playing at home. And when he didn't know a question, he didn't know a question. At no point did I get the vibe that he was nervous or that he was scared. And as the match progressed, he seemed more confident with what he was doing. Like, and it sucks that he lives out in Florida, but I would love to see more of Jader going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And especially you got that barbarian tease. God, do I love the barbarian with how fucking weird he is.
It's so obscure that it works. Because you don't get too many. Not everyone can be weird like that, like the barbarian. Not everyone can do that.
He's a weirder Dagnino, and that's what I love about him. Like, he's sitting there petting that scarf, that fur piece.
Yeah, whatever that is.
And it's just like, yeah, I could see Gucci doing that. I'm not even gonna lie. That's like, and just I really, when that match was seized, I'm like, I need that match, because we didn't even talk about the barbarian really. He had his first match earlier in the year, and he did fantastic. Like,
yeah.
So
better than I thought he was gonna do.
Kristian, when before the season started, he gave like a list of players to watch out for, and on that list was the Barbarian and Robert Parker.
He was being hyped up at the draft as well, being real slept on.
But like, and I remember, and you can go back to the whole Sam Levine interview if you want to go check that out. I asked Sam, because Sam has an open roster spot, and Kristian's kind of hinted at the fact that, yeah, with an open roster spot, managers can actually compete, because that's why part of the reason why R&B was able to compete in New York. And I asked Sam straight up, I'm like, is there a chance, and especially now that McWeeny's gone, like, I wish that match had aired before my interview so I could have asked a million more questions.
Yeah, but
unfortunately, it was the day before. But I asked him, like, are you gonna go back? Are you gonna play? And he's like, no, I think I'm done. But we didn't have that McWeeny news yet, and McWeeny lost. So it's like, are you sure you're done? Because personally, you and I both said Dan is gonna end up being the GOAT, but to me right now, Sam is still the GOAT.
Yeah,
and I think I still need to see Dan. I still need to see Merle Levine. That's a match I still need to see happen.
Yeah. Even with how Dan plays now, because Dan plays different now than how we did 2 years ago.
Yeah. Like, Dan is starting to to play the getting under people's skin a little bit. And Sam was always what I loved about Sam and his style of play. She was always able to get under your skin without seeming like an asshole.
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
At no point was he trying to play up a heelish persona. He was a face through and through, but he irked his opponents enough. And whether we get into that debate if it actually is a hinder to the game itself, like he did it enough, and he did it like successfully to the point where he, like you said, he didn't come off as an a-hole. He was just a guy, and that was good at playing the game. He's probably the best competitor to play the game how it's meant to be played, utilizing every single rule that you can possibly have. Because Dan didn't do that for a long time.
Yes, you are absolutely correct.
And like until the last year or two, if that, Dan finally started to be not the question guy. He was taking every single rule to his advantage, utilizing his JTEs, utilizing his challenges. Sam did that from the beginning because Sam cared about the game more so than a lot of other players did. And it was almost like he was studying not the questions, but the game itself and how people play it.
Yeah.
And that is super impressive. And that's why I nudge him over Dan. And but like I said, Dan's slowly on his way there. If not, he's already at that point. So I'm curious to see how that pans out, especially with Sam, if Sam ever competes again.
Right. But like, it's part of the reason I'm shocked that he's in a four-way tie for fourth, a three-way tie for fourth place. It's part of the reason why I'm shocked he's so low, because Sam is probably one of the biggest students of the game, and for him, I figure I'm like, he's got to have one of the best eyes for talent, and we've kind of seen that. Like, I'm sorry, Janine shouldn't have fallen as far as she did. I'm upset that I shouldn't say I'm upset. Like, if she hadn't gone against Riley that first match, she probably would have won. But it's Riley. It's a former champion.
You're going up against one of the goats on the Mount Rushmore, in my opinion.
Yes, and it's just hard to come back from that, especially when you're playing matches earlier on in the season, to where if you lose early on, we don't know when you're coming back, especially with all these teams and all these new players that have to get their burn and earn their stripes, and it's hard. So like, I'm interested, and one faction we haven't even talked about. We've talked about the exchange, the den, swag, rockstars, burning druid, suspects, corruption, dungeon. We haven't even mentioned the mercs. Like,
where have the mercs been?
That's the thing. Like, their two biggest players were in that triple threat. They lost to Dan. So now we don't know when they're going to play yet, because rankings got it for the new season had to build up.
Like, I remember when Koi drafted Shazam.
Yeah.
I was over the moon. Like, because that, not only do you get an incredible team, you get two great singles players.
Yes.
Whether it's Brendan Meyer or William Bibiani. And after New York, where? Like,
it's just how the season plays out now.
I am not. You don't even see Koi in cutscenes or in anything. Like, I bums me out because I love Koi. Koi's great.
Oh yeah,
and he's a great personality for a manager. But my God, he's gotten probably the least amount of screen time out of every manager and faction in the whole Schmoedown.
Yeah.
And it's upsetting because he's statistically he's better than the dungeon. He's better than corruption. Like, to say before, like, after the draft, if you're gonna tell me like we're gonna have Koi and the quirky mercs, or I think they were the mouthy mercs at the time, they were gonna be better than corruption. It's like, no. Especially with corruption being led by a great team in corruption and a great singles inner geekdom player like Mike, then what's up? And nope. Obviously, teams have dropped the ball, but I think not only Coy as a manager, but the whole faction's just dropping the ball. And maybe it's just because, like how you said, the rankings panned out and the matches aren't in their favor and they're not getting too many matches. Okay. But as the season progresses, I want to see more of these people. I want to see more of the quirky mercs because they have the real rejects too, right?
Yeah. Real rejects are one of their wins. The real rejects came out of nowhere.
I think they're their only wins so far this season.
No, because I think they have 2. Let's take a look. No, you're right. They're their only win because they've only had
real rejects are the only win the quirky mercs have this year, and that's saying something. No disrespect to the real rejects, but that's saying something.
Because here's my thing. I will say this: the real rejects were always one of those teams of, will they reach their potential ever? This, that, and the other, and that's why we didn't get them for like a year and a half or 2 years or whatever it was. And then they came out strong with this match, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to see more real rejects. But
and they've both proven themselves to be great players. Like, I think Greg and John are both awesome players. Obviously, they're great as a team. So if that means seeing more real rejects, awesome. But we shouldn't be seeing more real rejects than Shazam this year. Like, I don't know when Shazam's going to play next. I don't know when Bib's going to play next. So in singles or the kid. But we need to, for the better of the Schmoedown and for the better, obviously, of their faction, they need to bring it just a little bit more than they have been. Yeah. Like, they need to prove themselves to the rest of the league.
I agree with you completely there. And there is one storyline that has been set up that we have not yet talked about, and I'm kind of I'm hitting myself upside the head for it mentally. The Wildberries storyline that we're gonna get at some point, Lord knows when.
We have to.
Like, I gotta see that Civil War. I need, and it kind of sucks because Kristian's like, yeah, Makugo's just now getting back into town, and he was gonna settle in, and then we're gonna try to get him into some matches. But again, COVID fucked things up.
Yeah.
Pardon my language. I'm gonna bleep that out after the fact.
No, but COVID really screwed a lot of things up, and the Wildberries breakup was one of the bigger newsworthy headlines, Schmoedown-wise, out of the draft.
Shannon just did it to be evil. That's the thing.
And I love Shannon as a manager, as a heel. Like, she brings everything that I want out of a manager.
I just don't like her as a manager.
Oh, I mean, yeah, her character's I love her character, but her picking up the Wildberries was it was a moment in the, like, sucks the air out of the room at the draft. And there's been little to no follow-up. It's been addressed, but
we had that cutscene, and you could tell, okay, that's the first building block to whatever the storyline is going to be.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
And like, I get it. Things change, things have gotten so messed up,
and they're not within our control, and it sucks because, like, you got any more of those Schmoedown matches, me? Yeah,
and especially in regards to when the filming was happening, Josh was away shooting Eating History, so it was a pickle to be in. But I mean, we'll see that eventually. We might even see a reunion before we even get to see them do a little Civil War.
I don't know. I think Shannon's gonna. Well, let's play a before we head off. Let's play a hypothetical. Let's say they're able to get back to doing stuff in middle of June, late June, or not June, middle of July, late July.
Yes,
they're gonna have to put the burners on. Like, Kristian's.
They got to bring the heat for sure.
Like. One thing I hope is that he's using this time to figure out how he's going to tie up some of these storylines that have been set up. Because at this rate, hopefully by then they do have their own studio, so Kristian can say, "Hey, yo, screw it. After SCN Live, we're going to the studio. We're going to knock out like 7 matches today, 4 or 5 tomorrow, so on and so forth." Because with everything that's going on in the world right now, if we want to see as much of the Schmoedown as we're supposed to see, we're gonna have to have a situation like that, or he's gonna have to suck it up and rely on StreamYards. Which, don't get me wrong, I love StreamYards. I'm really interested to see how these matches pan out. And the thing I love about StreamYards is it's always going to be easy to tell if someone's taking advantage of the situation because you're on your computer. And that's part of the reason why I like the fan leagues, because you're on your computer. You know somebody's not cheating at that point because, yeah, you get my point. So, but what I'd love to see is him do even for he could still do live events using StreamYards because sure, it's not going to be live. It's do the pay-per-view event like you've been doing the $4. You have a private YouTube link and you have these matches. Sure, we don't get the grand entrances. Sure, we're not going to get the full-on cutting a scene before the show. But I think with everything that's going on, and they're saying we might not be able to have large gatherings until at least next summer or fall. So what does that mean for Schmoedown Live? Because that was that was supposed to be their thing this year. That was the aspect they were building on top of the storyline.
I was so excited for this summer.
Because they were talking about Detroit, they're talking about Pittsburgh, Philly, and we're just like, hell yeah, that's driving distance.
I know, right? They're talking about Chicago. Chicago's going to be a thing again.
Yeah, and it's just like, man, that was going to be how the Schmoedown grows. And I know he talks about the fact that he just wants to do the exhibition matches for the time being on StreamYards. Yeah, I get that. But eventually you might get pushed to a situation where you have no choice but to continue on using StreamYards until everything's given the okay to go back to normal or semi-normal.
And you can still do some matches that can advance stories. It just won't be the same as having access to a full studio, having everybody there at once. Like, does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. But you're still giving fans the matches, and you're still advancing some stories. Not everything right now can be solved with one match, and I get that. But you can do some or create new stories that people will care about.
Right. And like, I get team matches would be harder to do because like you'd have to mute people's mics, let them hop on the phone with each other on speakerphone while like say it was the 5-point question in the final round. You'd have to like mute their mics. Like I could mute your mic, and if somebody else in here, I could mute theirs. Say you two were a team, and you guys could call each other and talk the final point question out. But the single matches, they can live on here for the time being. If we only get singles matches and he uses StreamYards, fine, let's do it. Yeah, I need a lot of this stuff, especially how well it's been set up. Like, I was so looking forward to buying the live stream for the free-for-all. The free-for-all is one of my favorite events of the year because the free-for-all makes stars. Remember, the kid had an outing to begin last year. He played well in the free-for-all, and everything changed. Everything.
Like my favorite wrestling event is the Royal Rumble, and that's where Kristian models the free-for-all after. Like, I love watching the free-for-all because, like you said, it builds stars. There's some incredible moments, and it elevates even the established stars like Bibiani. Bibbs is built for the free-for-all. He's obviously proven himself that. And shit, like, he's even gotten opportunities out of the free-for-all. Even though he might not win the thing, he still gets opportunity that comes back later and may or may not benefit him. So I hope we do get that. Even if we don't get it this year, I'll be cool, like, if we have to postpone it to next year, if at the time we can have large gatherings like that of at least, if it's just the competitors, like 40, 50 people.
Right, that's all.
But
fine.
It's just a matter of circumstance, and I wonder how they're going to do that going forward. But if, like you said, if you just had to do singles and inner geekdom for the time being, okay. And if you got to put the teams on pause.
And arguably, those are the two leagues that people care the most about, arguably. Like, I mean, shit, Star Wars could grow during this thing.
Yeah, you can easily do more Star Wars.
Like,
as much as I'm not the biggest I love Star Wars, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea of a whole division for Star Wars.
I'm with you there because like eventually those questions run out.
And like they do those questions in Inner Geekdom anyway.
Yeah, and they do it in normal. They do it in singles.
Yeah, so and you can make the same argument for like comic book questions in singles and teams, but I think it's not the same, at least in regards to Star Wars.
Right, because Star Wars, it's just a Star Wars.
That Interkingdom's already niche. Star Wars is super niche.
Yes.
And having a whole division, like this year how many matches have we had for Star Wars? 1?
Yeah, we only get like 3 or 4 a year normally.
And though that belt is fun, like we saw it in Chicago last year. Yeah. It was fun. It's a fun time, and it was topical because of the event that was going on at the time.
And we were possibly going to see it in Anaheim in August, but who knows if that event's actually going to happen now.
Yeah, so it's just, that's a whole different can of worms. But like you said, you can even grow Star Wars now with that. If you still want to have it as a division, it could be a pillar for the StreamYard thing.
Right.
Like, so it could be beneficial for now, but in the long haul, I wonder how this is going to play out. I really wonder. And obviously Kristian will update us as things progress, but at least for right now, we'll have those exhibition matches to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I think first episode went great. For those of you who watched, thank you for tuning in. We're going to try to do these once a week. We're probably going to end up doing it more so like once every 2 weeks until like school's done for the semester.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll keep everyone updated.
But thank you for tuning in. Signing off, I'm Matt.
I'm Chris.
And this was the first episode of Who Are They? Spin from the Reel.
Not the pegs.